Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me. Hell no.
John Fink.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you not a big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands grown up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
Drink responsibly tonight. I'll be drinking with you.
Jarrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Hello and welcome to the Monday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Doug Gottlieb with me. I have Chris Mack with me, and I am finally back from a trip across the Northeast. I was at Ed Cooley's return to Providence on Saturday. I was at UConn's demolition of Xavier, Mac, on Sunday afternoon, and now I am home enjoying Big Monday with two of my favorite people in the world of college basketball. We have a lot to get to here. It's going to be a Monday Overreactions podcast. We are diving into some of the crazy stuff that happened in the world of college basketball over the weekend. We got to talk about this Houston-Texas game, which is a 2-point game with less than 2 minutes left, and Duke went on the road and picked up their best road win of the season. Before we get into all that, I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not getting into everything that happened today for reasons that are not mine to share. It's not anything legal. It's not anything like that. No one's getting in trouble, but you guys will find out eventually. It's just not my place. All I'll tell you is this. Sometimes your thumbs get the best of you, and sometimes your emotions get the best of you. On to Duke. So the Blue Devils go in to Blacksburg.
Hey, that's it? Wait, hold on. You guys own basketball Twitter today, and that's what you give me?
Yeah, I'll explain.
Rob, let me hold on. I got understand, but let me just share something, okay? As a guy who lived in the Northeast for 12 years, okay? And so, like, this is going to sound a little complicated. Give me a second. The whole college basketball thing doesn't work unless you have the Northeast, okay? It just doesn't, right? The Big East being back and UConn being in it and being relevant, that changes the whole dynamic of the sport, okay? Having tournament games at Madison Square Garden makes the sport. Having St. John's back makes the sport. But let's also be honest, okay? And Mac probably won't say it because he's going to be a head coach again very, very soon, right? But I can say it. I don't know if I'll be a head coach or not. It doesn't really matter. Okay, Rob, you are the exception to the rule. Okay, I'm not saying there's not douchebags where I live. I live in Newport Beach, California. There's a high ratio of douchebags, but very different kind of. They're more USC football douchebags. They just are. Okay, and how they act towards USC football is the way how some of those people act towards Syracuse basketball, UConn basketball. They didn't invent the sport. Okay, the sport was invented by a Canadian, okay, and they didn't invent it. But there's a negative anger energy that, again, is great for the sport. Great. And I thought that Providence, for the most part on Saturday, like contained it. They did a good job of prepping for it. Okay, but I think some of it, and again, I don't know all the details, and I don't actually care about the thing you're talking about. I'm only telling you that I have no doubt that the people behind it who are triggering all of this are in that high percentage of douchebag ratio guys that we as non-Northeasterners think that's what's like every time I go to Providence. That's what's every time I go to the Dome. That's what's like when I go to Hartford to watch UConn. That's what's like when I go to the Garden, right? You're just a bunch of a-holes. Like, you're allowed to cheer for your team and boo the other team and talk a little trash, but you go overboard. And that's, by my estimation, what took place. Trying to get dudes fired, trying to get guys canceled, like that's douchebag stuff. Let's just talk some hoops.
All right, let's get into it. The Duke conversation. Blue Devils go on the road, 77-67 win over Virginia Tech. It is their first quad one road win of the season. They had two other road wins. They were not quad one wins. Jeremy Roach off the bench, 16 points, 4 assists, played 29 minutes, looked like he was healthy again. Mac, how big is it to be able to go on the road and pick up a road win like this in a place like Blacksburg, a place that you have coached and you know how difficult that can be?
I mean, it's huge. You know, Duke's had their struggles there. You know, this isn't, a place that they just sort of check off the box and say, we're going to roll in and to Blacksburg and get a win. You know, what impressed me about Duke was just thought all of their guards, Caleb Foster maybe not quite the level of the other guards, but I think all their guards played well. When their guards play well, I don't mean one of them. I don't mean Jeremy Roach has a good game. I mean Proctor plays well. Jared McCain plays well. I think Jared McCain can play even better. When those guys, and he was ACC Rookie of the Week this past week, when those guards are clicking, and Filipowski's such a tough matchup. Virginia Tech changed ball screen coverage about 3 or 4 times during the game. Mike Young doesn't generally do that. But when they're slipping Filipowski into the mid-post or at the foul line on hard coverages, and he's such a good passer. He's a great finisher. He shoots 9 shots, 14 points, 8 rebounds. That's a really good win for Duke. Really good win. I think when their guards play well, they've got a shot to maybe jump in that race with Carolina this weekend. It's going to be huge, obviously.
Yeah, Doug, that's the big question, right? Like, how good is Duke actually? They came into the season, it was them or Kansas as the preseason number 1, and obviously have not quite lived up to that. How good are they, and how good can they actually be?
I think they're good, and I think they can. I think they can make it to the Final Four. And I think that part of it is you have to get all your pieces back in order to absorb those roles. And I think it kind of organically is working itself out in terms of the roles. Right. Like, they know who their go-to guy is. And then Flip, as I think Mac pointed out, like, he's actually really unselfish. He's not a pig. So you can, when he's double team or when he slips and catches the mid-post, he sprays it to other places. And I think they're getting there defensively. Virginia Tech's a very different cover than, say, Carolina or some of these other teams. They run a million sets. They're all good, and they spread you out, and they flare you, they curl you, they do all kinds of different stuff. And you have to be super disciplined, not just in your coverages, but in talking to one another, which is the hardest part for college kids these days. They don't actually talk to each other. They text or snap each other, right? But you can't do it on the court. So I thought there was a great amount of defensive discipline, especially considering some of the younger players they're playing. And they do a good job. Like, Padula couldn't get a good look. He was 0 of 6 from 3. That's how you have to beat Virginia Tech. You got to limit their quality looks, and then you got to expose them athletically, defensively. They're not great, but they do help very well. So I thought coaching-wise was excellent. I thought rotation-wise, you had 8. They all played within their roles, and I kind of think they're figuring themselves out. Are they a Final Four team right now? No. The tournament doesn't start today. It starts in March, end of March. So I think they're actually progressing quite nicely, as the injuries have really helped them play Foster and McCain probably more than they would have played that early in the season. And it's a lot like UConn, right? Like, UConn probably benefits from Clingan being out as long as he was out. It gave them kind of a second sort of gear, a different sort of way to play. And I think the same things happen for Duke. So them and Carolina are very different. Carolina's older. I don't think Carolina has nearly as many options to beat you off the bounce. But they're, I think, a little bit more mature in how they space and spread it. But they don't have the bench of Duke. They don't have 8 guys that can score.
Doug, let me ask you this, and Mac, I want you to weigh in on this too. So the whole thing about North Carolina becoming this like top 3, top 4, number 1 seed kind of a deal has been that they've made this growth on the defensive end of the floor, right? They were a problem defensively. They had a problem defensively the last 2 years. They are a problem defensively now, at least according to the metrics. Mac, we'll start with you. Are you buying them as a defensive juggernaut? Because to me, that's the biggest question with North Carolina.
Well, I wouldn't call them a defensive juggernaut, but I think it starts with them being connected. And, hey, we all know that last year they weren't, and it's not because Caleb Love was the issue. It's an issue with all those guys on the court, in the locker room. They didn't mesh. Defense is 2 things. It's effort and it's scheme. And I don't think Hubert Davis has changed his scheme a lot. And you're going to get great effort when guys are connected. Guys feel like on the offensive end, they're sharing the ball. And I think Armando Bacot sort of leads the charge. He's being really unselfish for a guy that has had a lot of accolades throughout his career. He's played a national championship game, and he's been an all ACC guy, and he's not trying to whine when he doesn't get the ball. He's not crying about how many touches he's getting. At least on the surface, it doesn't look like it. He looks like he's happy. They're winning. They're going to him when they need to go to him, and I think when you're connected on offense, it shows on the defensive end. But they're not a juggernaut defensively, Rob.
Doug, go ahead.
Carolina is not a juggernaut. Chris Mack is 100% correct. But they just do what they're supposed to do. That's it. It's really, and he's got the benefit of having Kadu at this age is he's been able to kind of mold him. And now he's giving him a little bit more freedom offensively. And the kid is really well coached. So you're good at the point. You got a combo who can really guard as well. And then the other two, and you got older players. You got a kid who played, 4 years at Notre Dame he's not great, but he's just solid, tough, smart, knows how to play a help-oriented man-to-man, understands the assignment. And then Harrison Ingram's good. He's a good defender, good solid. He can really rebound. So they're not going to suffocate you. They're not going to climb into you. They're not going to do what Houston can do, where they can just embarrass you and hold you to 45 points if you don't know what you're doing, right? But what they'll do is they're going to be there for every shot. They're going to be in position to box out. They're a lot more physical than North Carolina's reputation is. And I think it's a great way, considering outside of, one guard, they're really a jump shooting team. And then obviously you have a big guy who can score in the post. So they're not really an efficient offensive team in terms of drive kick. They just kind of play and it's fairly open and they run a couple of sets. And but defensively, they're really good because they're just really solid. And sometimes that's all you need. And I've seen them in person. I've seen them on tape. And I've talked to other coaches, and most of them say the exact same thing. Like, there's no real tricks to it. They're not doing what Coach Williams would do, where you trap out of the first time out of every half. They're not tricking you. They're not pressing you. They just play really good defense, know their roles, know their assignments, and based upon personnel, they're guarding ball screens a certain way, and they're tough. I think that's the big thing, right? Like, Mac, would you say defense is about two things?
I think it's effort and scheme, and I don't think he's changed his scheme a whole lot. But I think they're giving a lot of effort, and they are physical. Doug's right on the physical part. Harrison Ingram, I think, really brings that to the table. And, they got experience. And when guys have experience and they're connected and, Well,
that's the other thing. I would say it's those two things, and then you got to communicate as well. Communicate and bring some connectivity. Yeah. And you don't get that with young players unless they're really, really well coached or they're really advanced. I think Kadu is really advanced and he's been well coached, and then the others are they've been in it. So that's honestly, Rob, that's what you get most with older players. Like, there's a downside to it because guys get to be seniors and they get the voice in their ear, right? You got to get buckets to make more money. Right? Like, look, dude, if you're in college and you've been there for 5 or 6 years, like, just go and try and win games. Like, this is the best it's going to be. But the point is that those guys really just do what they've been taught, and they've all been coached by good coaches, right? You're talking about, it's one thing to get transfers. It's another thing to get a transfer that played for Mike Bray. You got one that played, for Jared Haas. And then, you have other guys that have been there multiple years, and so they understand their scheme. But the thing about the toughness element is that is a huge thing for Carolina. They were not mentally tough in any way last year because they couldn't get along with each other on offense. And then if you can't you're never going to be figured out defensively. You start pointing fingers anytime somebody gives up a bucket.
Yeah. Mac, I do just want to ask you real quick on this. You got North Carolina. We got Duke. North Carolina's got to play another game before that game happens over the weekend. How difficult is it? We call those trap games, right? It's a road game before a big conference game. How difficult is that, and how real is this whole trap game narrative that we talk about? As you can see, the odds right there for the ACC title, courtesy of BetMGM.
I mean, it's real. A lot of times the buzz that you have in your stadium, in your arena, just isn't the same. You'll start to get students that will ask you about the game on Saturday when you have a game on Wednesday. The student newspaper will ask you about the game on Saturday when you have one on Wednesday. Players will show up. Nobody's in the stands. It's just it's different. And guys know who's on the schedule. But, generally veteran teams, teams that have older guys are usually better at handling that. And obviously the coach has to address it, but that's only going to go so far. It's got to be the mentality of the team when they show up, what the season means to them, not the game.
Yeah, listen, we just talked a lot about the ACC. We have the number 4 team in the country, Houston, playing. We'll get to the Big 12 next. As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 each and every week of the college basketball season. We have a special offer that will be available starting on Tuesday, January 9th and running through Monday, February 12th, the morning after Super Bowl 58. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, in honor of the big game, you can use the bonus code FIELD158 and you'll get $158 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD158. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD158 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create separate accounts in each state. It's easy, it's simple, it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the heart of the college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odd boosts, and my favorite, a nice juicy parlay boost. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Field 158. Late 50s maybe. Welcome back to the Monday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. We are here sweating out the Houston, Texas matchup. It is 66-65 with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in overtime. My name is Rob Dauster. We have Doug Gottlieb. We have Chris Mack. We are live on SiriusXM channel 84, and we are live over on Stadium. Guys, we're going to get into our overreaction segment here while we wait for Houston and Texas to finish up. I'm going to start with
this is a really good segment, okay? And I don't want to self-contain it. I want to ask Chris Mack questions, so a really important one, okay?
Okay, do it.
It's a real one.
Fire away.
Okay. I watched Houston play, and they got freaking dogs. They just got dogs. They have competitive dudes that just like, I want to take the basketball from you, and then I want to shove it right up your you-know-what. Like, they got dogs. And when you played at X and when you coached at X, you had a high percentage of dogs, right? And some of that can be taught, right? It's one of the things that we miss out on college basketball, the transfers. Like, it's really hard to get guys to buy into culture and really absorb it when they're there for like 6 months. But my question's more in recruiting. Like, when you see kids play in an AAU event, or maybe, AAU event, because it's easier when it's on college, it's on tape, you talk to their coach and everything. How do you know if, like, because you fall in love with the effort and the intensity, but, like, there's still, like, you got to have a skill element to it. You got to be able to play in the ACC or in the Big East. How do you balance that in your head when you're watching the kid? You're like, I love him. He's a dog, but can he be a dog at our level? Like, that's my question. How do you evaluate
Man, it's hard. It's hard, man. It's really hard. I think you got to ask as many questions to as many people that are around the kid. I think you got to get your eyes on him as much as you possibly can, see him in his best moments, see him in his lowest moments, and then you've got to make a judgment call. And, so often, recruiting gets tied in around the how many stars a kid has, Doug, and you know that. And, there's pressure on coaches to make sure their fan base is excited about who's coming in. But, sometimes guys come in and nobody knows who they are, and those become your dogs, and it's a crapshoot. I mean, kids play enough that you get to see them. But it's not just about their playing ability. It's about their competitiveness. It's about when stuff doesn't go their way. It's about assimilating themselves into a team and to a culture. And I think that's obviously what Kelvin does at a very high level. When those guys walk in the door, he's going to put the bubble on top of the rim, and they're going to shoot an offensive rebound until 2.5, 3 hours of practice is over. But it gets ingrained in those guys. I mean, you can't just get dogs and expect them to go out there and win games with that type of culture. You have to practice it. You've got to breathe it. And certain coaches do it better than others, man.
I want to follow up on that because I think if there is a concern for me with Houston, and I want to put this into context for the people that yell at me about this stuff. Houston's the top 5 team in college basketball. We're picking nits here. Okay. We're talking about the difference between them and the other 4 teams in the top 5. But if I have a concern, it's that they can kind of get into this tendency where they rely a little bit too much on that toughness and on that defense, where they
No
say,
question.
okay, you know what? Sometimes we're not going to worry about whether or not we got shot makers or we can run some stuff, because we'll just get enough offense off of turnovers and off of offensive rebounds. And I feel like that's a little bit a risky proposition when you are dealing with other teams at the highest level of the sport that are going to have that same level of athlete to a point. Does that make sense? Like that's kind of my one hesitation with going all in with Houston, with the context that I know that they've won like 33 games the last 5 years. In the last 4 tournaments, we're talking Sweet 16, Final Four, Elite 8, Sweet 16, right? They're very, very good. I kind of feel like there's a little bit of a ceiling.
Yeah, but every style has its kryptonite, right? Every superhero has its kryptonite, right? Those teams that shoot 30, 40 threes a game, there are games in which you go 5 for 30, right? Teams that press, there are times with the reason nobody presses is because there's going to be teams that throw it up, shoot a 3, and make you look really, really bad. You know, Wisconsin, when they went to back-to-back Final Fours, right? They played pack line, and they played kind of level of the ball and flat hedges, and they made you make jump shots. Well, they lost to Duke in the Final Four because Duke jumped up and made jump shots. So my point is there's a weakness to just about every style. And I understand what you're saying, Rob. You're not wrong. There are games in which you're like, damn, this is – because they don't run a ton on offense. There's not a – go watch the scatter report. There's not a bunch. It's just like, hey, they run a couple sets. They got really good players. Then the real fight starts when they shoot the ball, right? And then, of course, when you're on offense, holy cow, that went in and one. So yeah, when you go all in and you're just going to defend and rebound, that's a tough. There's going to be one night in 10 that it's bad. You know, when they got blown out by who was it? Iowa State on the road, they just couldn't score. You're going to have nights like that, but I would say that if you look metrics wise, it's almost always you get out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament when you're one of the elite defensive teams. Almost never get upset early. Now, it does sometimes limit their ceiling in getting to the Final Four because, you know, NCAA tournament games are really tightly officiated. But I would say it's just like superheroes. Everybody has their fatal flaw.
All right, let's talk about the top of the Big 12. Go ahead, Mac. Go ahead. Finish up.
I'll just say real quickly, one of the things that makes their defense, their rebounding so elite is because they're not a jack of all trades, master of none. You know, they're not also trying to be great at out executing you. They're also not trying to be great on the fast break and trying to spread you out. You know, I think they're fortunate, and then they got a guy like Jamal Shed that can go one-on-one and create his own shot. And with that, they don't have to necessarily be an elite offensive team, but their identity is going to be what it is, and it's going to be an elite identity because they know who they are, and they practice that way, and they drill it, and they drill it, and they drill it.
I mean, like, look, this last possession, the game is 70-all, okay, 70-all, and they're face guarding LJ Cryer. Right? So you're taking him completely out of the play. And Jamal Shed kind of goes one-on-one, might have pushed off. I like that the official swallowed the whistle.
Yeah, might have.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know, like Tyrese Hunter took a dive. Like, are we really going to change a game like that on a dive? Just stand up. Yeah. Anyway, misses the shot, but they get an offensive rebound, kick it out, throw it inside, get a layup, and now they're up 2 points. Like, I mean, I used to watch Cincinnati for years. Like, what are they running? Like, who cares? Like, their offense is throw it up and then go fight for it. That's it. And have tougher dudes and then kick it out and shoot a 3. And then if you miss it, do it again. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not a style that I think I would excel in. I like the defense and the fight, but there's a lot of mud there on offense, but it works. I mean, it works.
Yeah, I watched enough of your tape, Doug, to know that you would have been really good at the throwing it up and missing
part.
Not so good at getting the offensive rebounds part. All right, let's just while we wait for this game to go final, and there's 32 seconds left. Houston's up by 2 in overtime. I do want to ask you, one of the overreactions that we had this week involved Texas Tech and Iowa State. This is the worst start that Bill Self has ever had in the Big 12. Kansas is 4-3 right now. Houston is sitting here at 5-2, could end up being 5-3 by the time we actually get into this conversation. Texas Tech is 6-1 in the league. Iowa State is 5-2, and they've beaten Houston and they've beaten Kansas. Mac, can either of these teams actually go out and win? Like, that's my overreaction. I think that both of these teams have a real chance to actually go out and win a Big 12 regular season title.
I do too. I don't know if I would put money on one of them. If you said, hey, I could have both of those, I think it's a pretty good bet. You know, it's not like they've played a terrible schedule up to this point in the Big 12. They played, 5 home games and 2 road games. Mm-hmm. I always think in the back of my mind, hey, Kansas is Kansas. But I look at who they played this past weekend when they lost to Iowa State. Their minutes from their starters, 38, 38, 38, 35. And the only guy that didn't play 30 minutes was KJ Adams. He was foul trouble the whole game. Like, they don't have anybody off the bench. I just don't know how you can go through a Big 12 season, win a championship when you're only really playing 5.5 guys, And so I think they have a real shot, Iowa State or Texas Tech. I think all those other teams have warts just as much as they do. And, it's about staying connected. There we go, Houston. But, yeah, I don't think you're crazy at all. It's early.
Okay, so I'll give you my
right?
No. I'm with you, Mac. Right? They got 2 points out of their bench on Saturday. That's just not going to do it. The good news for Kansas is Furphy's starting to play, and so all of that investment now they have 5 guys that can score on offense a little bit. That changes things. And what's the kid from Townsend's name? God, Nick Timberlake. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been good yet, but I mean, I think you're just still holding out hope that can you find a lineup that he can come in and get you some buckets. I think if I was advising Bill, I would find a way. Like, you got to get him going because you got to get some minutes off the bench. And of course, they lost Ontario Morris for the season. That killed him because otherwise, Furphy's off the bench and Timberlake's off the bench, and now you bring a little bit of young firepower or whatever. There's still probably a guy short. So I don't think. To your point, Mac, I don't think they win the league. No matter how much they'll probably win every home game except for like one. I don't think they're going to win the league. But Tech survived K-State at home. They're okay. They're good. They're just I think Houston and Kansas fight for the league championship, and there'll be probably one other one. Maybe it's Iowa State. Iowa State's really good. Yeah, but TCU, how Oklahoma State should have beat them, and that they're okay. I think there's a lot of really good.
That's how I feel. Like a lot of those guys in the middle right now.
There's probably not a national. Houston might be their best chance of winning a national championship. Maybe Kansas. Again, I'm just. You got 4.5 guys in Kansas. That's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
What
about this
Texas? It's an unbelievable league. Huh?
Yeah, well, let's talk about Texas real quick because it is 74-70 with 3 seconds left. Max Asmus is going to the line, I believe, for 3 shots. So if they can pull a Colorado State and Wyoming here, then they got a chance to send this thing to another overtime. But where do you stand with them? Because I feel like when I watch them, they have enough talent to make a lot of things happen. Yeah,
they have enough talent, and they showed tonight that they got enough fight. But you've got to be consistent, and that is not what Texas has been all year long. They were crowned a top 15 team to start the year, and they haven't played like it. I think that they've had really good moments, and then they've had some very confounding moments. And I think when you're like that, you're not going to win the league.
Mm-hmm. I'm with Mac. I'm with Mac. This is more of a return to normalcy for Texas predating Chris Beard. Last year was more of a Beard team. They were older. They were tougher. They couldn't really score. That was their problem last year. Is they had a little bit of the Houston thing. And I love Asmus, but he's last shot he got blocked. I don't think he's the problem, but I don't know if he and Hunter are great in terms of coexisting. That would be.
You know what, Doug? I love that you made that point because if you look at North Carolina right now, they have 2 little guards, right? And it's kind of the same thing as Texas. They have 2 guards that are about 6 foot, 6'1", and I think it works for North Carolina because they have very clearly defined roles, both of them. Elliott Kadu is the set you up guy. RJ Davis is the shooter guy. I don't know if you have that at Texas. Listen, when we come back, we're going to talk about the end of this game, and we're going to dive all the way into the overreactions that I have from the weekend. Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first-name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this. You get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph fandom app. But here's the best part. The more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider the level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast. It really is that simple. Welcome back to the Monday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark as Kansas and Texas goes final. Houston wins 76-72. Your boy bet the under, and that thing died a painful death. We would have covered. We would have hit the bet if it ended at 65-65 in regulation, but that is not how basketball works. So here we are. Houston beating Texas 76-72. I feel like we covered all the ground we needed to cover on Houston and Texas in that last segment. So I do want to get to the overreactions here. And this is going to be a fun one. I need to go to Chris Mack first on this one. A healthy Donovan Clingan is the most important player in the Big East right now.
Well, I mean, I'd say yes, but UConn was pretty good without him. But I think Borzello had a tweet that he played 35 possessions against Xavier on Saturday. And in those 35 possessions, there it is, Xavier scored 12 points. Just so people have in perspective, like if you're an elite defense, you're probably around 0.80 points per possession. That means every possession, team's scoring 0.8 of a point. And the fact that they're that low, and Xavier doesn't have right now, big guys that maybe they've had in the past that can score the ball around the basket. They've got some young foreign kids, but at the same time, man, he is so big and he is so imposing. And it's probably pretty accurate, man. I don't think that's an overreaction.
Yeah, Doug, I'm gonna hit you with this because we have another stat as well too that shows his impact on the game. UConn's defense with Donovan Clingan on the floor held Xavier, Mac, to 18.8 effective field goal shooting percentage and 3 for 23 on twos. On the game, Xavier was 4 for 14 on shots taken from within 1 to 3 feet from the rim. That data is from cbbanalytics.com, a subscription site that you can sign up to. I call him the Great Wall of Bristol. They call him Kling Kong. He erases everything in the paint when he's right. And I'll tell you what, yesterday, after having a week off to kind of get into shape and lose some weight, he looks right.
Yeah, it changes everything. It does. When you have that type of rim protection and you can do it without fouling as well. And let's be honest, right? The biggest change in basketball in my lifetime is that officials have gone from talking about verticality to actually allowing verticality. Okay, so Rob, I know you know it, but I don't know if you know it to the core of it back when Mac and I played. Officials come to your practice before every season, right? The two things you get before every season in college basketball, when I played at least, and I played 2 schools, you got the FBI. They would come in and warn you about gambling, and they would show you these pictures and tell you these stories, and you're like, oh my God, I'm never gambling on anything because I don't want to owe anybody like that money. And then the officials come in and they talk you through, they officiate a scrimmage usually, they sit and they talk you through new rules. And every year they would talk about verticality, right? Where you from the tip of your toes to the fingertips, all the way to infinity, that's your space and you have this space. No, it never worked. If you were a guard, you drove in, guy puts his hands up, you just jump into him, you get a foul. Well, now they actually allow big guys to maintain their space and not block shots. And Clingan is so good at it. He's big. He's like athletic enough where he gets in your way. He doesn't, drop the hands too much. They give you like 20 degrees. So it's not just the block shots. It's that he's just a presence. So now you're taking floaters, you're taking middies, and it also allows the perimeter defenders to like salivate. Like I can get up in you because we want you to take middies or those floaters over his hands. And then we go rebound and we get out and run. So I think that part of it is like everybody looks at block shots, and there's with high level analytics, you have quality shots, right? Like you're not getting very many quality shots with Donovan Clingan defending the rim. And I think a big reason is his use of the verticality rule. And I think the verticality rule has completely changed, especially how college basketball is played and officiated.
Yeah, well, and I think he also has that impact on the offensive end because when he's rolling to the basket, he
totally different.
I don't know if there's a better.
Totally
is there a
different.
better?
Like everybody runs the same stuff as far as ball screens, right? You either ball screen and lift the backside, or you empty the backside, depending upon their coverage, right? And if you can put a really good shooter, and you got to read, does he tag? Does he not tag? But when you have a guy you can just throw it to, and he can find a way to catch it and put it in. Changes everything. Makes you look like a way better coach. Like, man, that offense looks really good. Like, it's the same offense. You just have a guy that can catch and dunk it.
All right, so we just talked about UConn, who is currently the number 1 team in college basketball. Now we got to get into Purdue, who was the number 1 team in our Fielding the 68 bracketology bracket that was released this afternoon. Purdue is playing Wisconsin on Sunday, and I know we're overlooking a game that's going to happen in the midweek. Coach Mack, please do not yell at me for doing that, but I will say this. My overreaction is that if Wisconsin can pick off Purdue at home on Sunday, that they will be in a position and that they will win the Big Ten. This is what they have to do. Get that win and hold serve against everybody else. You're going to have a 2-game lead in the conference if you can pull it off. Is that crazy? Is that a hot take? Is that an overreaction?
That ain't overreaction. I just saw Wisconsin in person on Friday. AJ Store's good, and he totally fits what they need. Without him, they're just Wisconsin, right? Big ass white dudes, guards that can post, bigs that can shoot, solid. He had 28 or 27 on Friday. And I'm telling you guys, like, you know how some guys, they're scoring and they're working and they're sweating? Like, he just kind of plays out there. It's really kind of easy to him. So when you look at their schedule, I think they only play Purdue once. They only play Michigan. Maybe they play Purdue twice. But they only played Michigan State once. They played them at home. So it's not a balanced schedule. And, Purdue's caught a couple L's. It's not crazy for Wisconsin to win the Big Ten. That's not a crazy overreaction take. Not at all. That's a really old team. How long has Chucky Hepburn been there? Tyler Wall, 5 years. They're good, and then they have a dude who can go get buckets on his own, break off of what they want to do, and that changes them incredibly.
Mm-hmm. Mac?
No way. I don't think they have any chance of beating Purdue for the Big Ten title. And they do play them twice, Doug. In fact, the last game of the year, Wisconsin has to go to Purdue. I think Purdue's different. Doug saw him in person, so he probably knows better than me. But I'm not there yet.
Mac, I love them. Like, they play so freaking hard. But again, like, if you can limit his looks, Edey's looks, and they have enough bodies to throw at him, like, they're just kind of okay. And like I like their threes and fours, especially First is a guy who I like, and I like all of those guys. But if you look at, I don't really understand the Dauster Goodman small guards thing. Like it's college basketball, you got to have two small guards, got to have ball handling. They just got to have the right ones. They got to fit together, and they got to be tough and share the ball, right? But I don't love the matchup there with how they play in terms of three perimeter players. And so is Lawyer going to guard Store? I don't know.
Right.
I don't love that matchup. And then, look, Braden Smith's a good player. He played great. Did he play yesterday or the day? My Saturday and Sunday go together. I can't remember. Did he play Sunday or Saturday?
They played Sunday.
Yeah, he played really well. Like, yep. Yeah, and I know Rutgers not great, but they're hard to play against. He's a hell of a coach, and he played well. And I don't love Checky Hepburn. Okay, but again, you've got grown ass 23-year-old man climbing in against a true sophomore. I like it a little bit more than you like it, Mac. Again, and I think one of the big things that we have to remember is it's not a true round robin. You don't play everybody twice. And if you catch a team at the right time, like if you caught Illinois and they didn't have Terrence Shannon, or right now before Terrence Shannon's up and going again, that's a lot easier win than it is when they got him back. And so I think there's a better chance than I was looking at that when I was doing the game. I was like, could they turn around and win this league? And I'm with you generally, but remember, Wisconsin, okay, so here's their schedule. They got Purdue coming up next, right? That's at home. That's Sunday. So they got after they have Nebraska. Now, you can't turn around and lose Nebraska getting ready for Purdue. And Nebraska can pop you, and they play a totally different style with a hard game. Thursday night, and you got Sunday, you got the number 1 or 2 team in the country. It's a hard game. Then Michigan, Rutgers, Ohio State. God, Ohio State, what happened to them? They stink. Oh. They go to Iowa, Maryland, at Indiana, Illinois at home, Rutgers. Like, there's not a lot of L's in that schedule. If they can split with Purdue, they can win the league.
Yeah, these two.
All right, so
I think like last time. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, so here's where I need to bring up Vaulted, because Vaulted is an app that allows you to participate in daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. It is a place that you can store your own predictions forever by using the Vaulted Challenge feature, and you can prove you're smarter than your friends. So go download the Vaulted app for a free trial. VLTED is how you spell Vaulted. Challenge your friends, store your predictions, join daily cash prize pools. Here's what I'm saying, guys. I'm saying that Purdue is going to go in there and win. So this whole conversation that we're having is going to be moot by the time that we get to about 3:15 p.m. on Sunday, which is, by the way, the first Sunday where we don't have NFL football during the college basketball season. It's going to be a ridiculous weekend of hoops. We have 4 top 10 matchups, but I'm saying that in this top 10 matchup between the top 2 teams in the Big Ten, Mac, I'm going with Purdue.
Yeah, I'd go with Purdue as well, Rob.
Thanks for the analysis, Mac. Great job.
I just think they're better, man. I also think that, like, it's going to be a tough week for Wisconsin because Nebraska isn't like, that's going to be a hard game for Wisconsin. There's going to be a hard game.
Now, look, you drop those 2, now all of a sudden you're behind Purdue potentially, whatever. But if you can, the craziest stuff is, like, again, if you just win your home games, and then, if you can beat Nebraska, find a way to beat Nebraska. You got a shot. You win your home games. Got to beat Purdue on Sunday. That's actually it's a weird one where that's probably more important than beating Nebraska. If you win them both, probably win the league. If you win 1 out of 2, you got a shot. You win 0 out of 2, like, nah.
Well, you got to get the one that's at home because look, if you go on the road, if you're relying
plus you're beating Purdue.
Yes, to go on the road to beat Purdue in Mackey Arena on Zach Edey's senior night, like that, you're not winning that game. Like, that's not happening. They're going to win that game by 1 million. It's Mackey Arena. Mm-hmm. That place is going to be rocking.
Does Zach Edey come back for another year?
Who knows? He could have a super senior night.
I know. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine he come back and play for another year?
Yeah, listen, might as well as the NIL money.
Hey, right? Look, so, like, what do we think? What do we like, Mac? What do you legit think he makes?
$2 million.
You think he makes $2 million? If he makes $2 million, he should never leave Purdue. Go back for another year.
I'm just pulling that out. But I don't know how he could.
Yeah, listen, we gotta head to a quick break. I got 3 more overreactions coming on the other side of the break. What's going on, guys? Before we get back to the show, I need to let you all know about the Field of 68 Daily, an all-encompassing college basketball newsletter that arrives in your inbox, you guessed it, daily. For less than $1 a week, you'll wake up every morning to more than 1,500 words detailing everything that you need to know to stay up to date on the world of college basketball. From the notable mid-major upsets to the stars that are out injured to the breakout performances that only our team of college basketball junkies watched. The Daily is edited and produced by Mike Miller, who spent more than 2 decades running NBC's digital written content, and is subscribed by more than half of the Division I coaching staffs, the biggest names in college basketball media, and the agents that work as power brokers in the sport. For just $50 for the year, you get access to the same information that the insiders get. And before we get you back to your regularly scheduled Field of 68 content, let me tell you guys about the Field of 68 merch store. Head over to fieldof68.shop for officially branded Field of 68 apparel. Whether you're supporting your favorite team in the student section or from the couch, there is no better way to gear up than the latest from the Field of 68. The best thing I can say about our merch is the quality of the product. Anyone that has ever worn a t-shirt knows how frustrating it is when the neck gets all stretched out and the bottom of the shirt starts looking like the bottom of bell-bottom jeans. And there's nothing worse than a hoodie that loses its snugness that makes it such a perfect way to stay warm during the cold winter weather. Whether you're shopping for yourself or for the college basketball fan in your life, everything you need is at the fieldof68.shop. Welcome back. The Monday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark, presented by our partners over at BetMGM. We are live on Sirius XM Channel 84 and over on Stadium. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Doug Gottlieb and I have Chris Mack, and we have a couple more overreactions from the weekend that we need to talk about. I want to start with this because I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. I put out a list of 8 teams that could win a national title based off of historical trends with KenPom's metrics last week. One of those 8 teams was Auburn. Auburn has since gone and lost 2 games on the road. They are now 16-4 on the season. They don't have a loss by more than 6 points this year. They are also 0-3 in quad 1 games and have not and don't have a quality win on the season. So we're going to start with you, Mac. Is Auburn going to end up a bubble team this year? Is that an overreaction?
Yeah, I think they'll be better than a bubble team. I don't think they'll be sweating on Sunday. You know, I think they're going to need a couple of these games coming up. I think they got Kentucky and Florida at home. They go on the road to Tennessee. A couple other games would give them a quad win. But, no, I don't. Didn't they beat Ole Miss? Didn't they beat them badly?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How's that not that's not a quad 1 win? That's not a quad 1 win?
I don't know. I saw Auburn last week, Mac. They're good. They're good. They're deep. He plays too many guys. I love Bruce, and I think he's a wildly underrated actual basketball coach. Like, they run good stuff. They play really hard. He takes some erratic shots. That's kind of his. He lets them play a little bit too much offensively. I think they're too talented to be a bubble team. I just do. I know there's a lot of SEC teams where there's not a lot of there, and they struggle a little bit in the non-conference. I don't think Auburn's one of them. I know they had a tough week, but those are 2 road games. They're not going to lose any home games. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it, right? Like they're really good defensively. They have, I think, enough on the offensive end, but at some point you got to beat somebody to kind of prove how good you are, right? Like a win over Ole Miss at home, who our producer Trevor says is 56th in the net. Okay, that's fine. They beat Texas A&M at home. Okay, that's fine. They beat USC at home. Okay, I got you. They beat Virginia Tech at home. All right, that's not that's a pretty good win. But they've got 4 losses away from home, and their only road wins are at Arkansas, which I don't think there's really anything great there, and at Vanderbilt. So I don't know. And Aiden Holloway hasn't been himself of late.
He was bad against Bama. He was just bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a little bit of it's age, but a little bit of it is like you're splitting time, and you get in the league and you get those calls like, dude, you're only putting up how many points, you're only getting how many shots, and I don't love how he's playing either, but I do think that Bruce will settle that thing down. So maybe he won't. 2 years ago when they were one of the best teams in the country, we said their guards and their shot selection is ultimately going to be their undoing, and their guards and their shot selection was ultimately their undoing. But again, in a league, that's an interesting league, right? Because it's without any question they have the most NIL. But Arkansas is kind of a hot mess, right? I don't know what's going on there. They should be better. Devo Davis stepped away from the team. There's a lot of just okay, and then I think Kentucky's really talented and pretty good. I think Tennessee's obviously I think they're the best conference team in that league. And then I think Auburn kind of fits in there in that, like Bama can really score, but they're not going to win on the road because they don't really defend. So I think they sit pretty comfortably there in that number 3 spot in the league, and they probably beat Kentucky at their place too anyway.
All right, let's move on to the next overreaction that I have written down, and that is that after road losses to Stanford, road losses to Oregon State, and road losses to Washington State, Arizona is not going to win the Pac-12 this season. Doug, I know you're a West Coast guy. I know you love yourself some Pac-12 basketball. Is that an overreaction?
I think it is, and the reason is I can't figure out who's going to win it if it's not them. Right? Like, kind of quietly, Kyle Smith's doing a hell of a job at Wazoo, right?
Yes.
Nobody knows what league they're in. They lost their best player to Villanova, Bamba, and then they lost DJ Rodman to USC, and they just keep winning games, and they just beat Colorado. Now, it should be pointed out the schedule got really weird in the Pac-12 this year. Traditionally, you do travel partners, right? So you only
why
play.
Did they change that? Do you know why they changed that?
I don't know. It had to do with. It had to be something with TV. It had to be something with TV. But they have some of these weird one-offs, whatever. Like for them, it's just a weird. Like you go and play Washington at Washington State, and then you play Utah, who's your travel partner. You play 3 in a row on the road. They lose the second one. The ones that are troubling is like Colorado wasn't healthy when they went to Arizona, right? They got stomped by Arizona and beat by Arizona State. That probably they're undoing. Otherwise, Colorado's the team that is most likely to take down Arizona. But they're not consistent enough. I don't see it. And, Dana's going to do his thing at Oregon, but they just lost to Arizona at home. Like, that's not going to happen. So I think by default, yeah, they're going to I can't find anybody else going to win that league.
It's because it's not because Arizona's great. It's because nobody else is good enough, Mac.
Well, look, I think Colorado Colorado's going to beat them when they play them at their place, right? It's going to be the biggest because they didn't have a De Silva and they didn't have the big freshman who's super talented, and you play in that altitude, and Arizona's not going to win that game. But I just think Colorado's going to stub their foot elsewhere, whereas Arizona probably doesn't too many times.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a conversation we had about the Big 12. It was like you could identify, a couple teams that, may have the ability to, end up with a championship. Arizona's right now tied with Oregon, and every team under them, I don't see how I don't think they're talented enough, and I don't think, first of all, talent level, I don't think they're close. I don't see Arizona losing enough games for somebody else to just come out of nowhere. I agree with Doug. I would think that team would be Colorado. Got a hell of a home court advantage. They got one of the best point guards in the country. But Arizona's pretty good in the backcourt as well.
I want to ask you guys this. The situation for me, like I know that Caleb Love was incredible on Saturday night. 36 points, 12 for 18 shooting. Probably the best game that he's had for Arizona and the best that he's played, maybe even since the second half of that Final Four game against Duke. He was incredible. But to me, the key to Arizona is and always will be Kylan Boswell. When he's bad, and he can be bad, Arizona loses. And when he's good, and he can be good, we saw him at Duke, really good, they can win some big games. So Mac and Doug, I want you guys to both put yourself in Tommy Lloyd's shoes. We'll go to Mac first. If you're coaching a team and you got a point guard who's struggling like this. Like, how do you get him right? Like, is it a confidence thing with him? And I know you don't know from the inside, but just like, how do you fix the situation?
Well, I mean, I think you just spend time with him. You know, you watch a lot of film with him. I think, you know, if he's in a rut, obviously he played well the other day, so it's not like he can't do it. I think you show him, you know, clips of when he's doing things well. You know, you try to build his confidence up, put him in situations in practice. And then that's all you can do, man. Confidence got to come from within. You know, I think coach can put you in good positions. He can show you tape, but ultimately that confidence has to, you know, exude itself on the court, and it's got to come between, you know, your own chest plate. And I think he's got it in him. He's only a sophomore. But you're right. When he plays bad, they don't look very good. And they're going to need him. He's a high percentage three-point shooter, does a little bit of everything. He's got to be able to hold his own down the stretch for that team to win the Pac-12.
Doug?
Well, it's interesting you bring it up because one of the things that I've had several coaches ask me to do is, and over the past couple of years, is, I got a point guard. Can you talk to him? Can you watch some tape with him? And when I tell all these guys is, you know, like, every one of these kids is a mercurial creature, but point guards especially, and like, what kind of point guard? But I would say for me, they're all kids at the same level. And what makes them feel good is the ball going through the basket. It's really amazing. Ball goes to the basket and they bounce around and they play defense and they do what you want, right? So there's a lot of different ways, and Mac's right? Have them watch tape, work on their confidence. Be talking with somebody in terms of getting some mental health help, right? Getting some extra shots of practice, managing their minutes of practice so they got fresh legs. Because it doesn't matter what you work on. If they're dead tired, they're not going to do what you want. But I just try and get them going early in the game, you know?
Yep.
Most athletic guys get going best when you get them a dunk early, get them an alley-oop early. For point guards, get them a good look. Run a couple things for them, you know? And, oh, yeah, by the way, if you sit them down and you go like, look, man, we want to get you going. What are the best looks? And then you can also use numbers as your guy, like you're best from the left wing. Like, let's run throw it in, get a little flair. I want you to shoot it, you know? And the other thing is, if they're not making shots sometimes and they're turning them down, take them out if they turn down a shot. Work the opposite way of how you usually do. But I think the easiest way to get any player going is figure out a way to get that ball going through the basket, and the rest kind of takes care of itself.
All right, listen, before we get to last call, Mac, you got 10 seconds. Toast of the night. Who you got?
Oh, my God. Jamal Shed. Houston Cougars. Go on the road. Win a big game. They're going to be the Big 12 champs. That's my toast of the night.
Doug, who you got toast of the night?
Well, I mean, Kelvin Sampson. What are you talking about? He used to beat Texas when he was at OU. Now he beats Texas when he's at Houston, right? I mean, we hated Kelvin, but we respected Kelvin because that guy coached.
All right, I got one for you. North Carolina Central moved into first place in the MEAC today behind 22 points from Boy King. Greatest name.
Rob, by the way, I think this is offensive, but it fits.
Listen, last